Hello, this is Brad, and I am your newest consumer technology specialist here at Mid-Continent Public Library. Welcome to our Windows Widgets series. We're going to be exploring some often overlooked Microsoft Windows applications and tools. Today, we are going to be focusing on one of Windows' oldest and most beloved applications, Microsoft Paint. It was actually part of the very first version of Windows that came out in 1985. So Microsoft Paint has been around for 37 years. Microsoft actually talked about getting rid of Paint in 2017 when they introduced their new 3D Paint. But they had such a big amount of people reaching out and saying how much that they loved the original Paint that they actually have kept it as part of every update they have done since. Paint is an example of a raster graphics editor, which just means that it kind of breaks down photos into little tiny squares that are called pixels, which will allow us to edit and modify that photo. So today we're going to look at some of the tools that Paint has, and then once we've kind of gone through those, we will actually look at a photo and we will use those tools and skills that we've developed to edit a photo. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and navigate to our Paint application icon. I've got it saved here on the desktop. You can also access it from your Start menu. You could scroll down on this side. If you didn't have it saved to any place, you could just search for it in this handy little search bar. Just type in Paint. There we see the icon. It's a little paintbrush and a little paint palette, and that is what we are going to be using today. So here in Paint, we see that we have our toolbar across the top here. This has all of the different tools and things that we can use to create an image within Paint. This white area is kind of our canvas. We can resize it by clicking and dragging the sides of this box to kind of give us a bigger or smaller area to work. We can also click and drag the corner as well. The first tool we're going to be looking at is the pencil. It's the most simple of all the tools that we have here in Paint. You just click it, and then you can click and drag to draw or write just like you would a regular pencil. It's as simple as that. The default color is black. We can also change the color to any of these colors over here. I'm going to try this with red. And not only can we modify the color in Paint, we can also modify the thickness of our pencil. So here we have this very thin line. I'm going to make this a little bit thicker line over here with my green color that I have. And like any good pencil, we need a good eraser. And so we have an eraser tool that we can utilize within Paint as well. And it works just like the pencil. I just click and drag to erase. Just like the pencil, I can modify the thickness of the eraser that I'm using. And we can just use that to erase anything that we would like to get rid of in our canvas. We also have the back arrow to get rid of mistakes as well if we didn't want to use the eraser. That's another option. Besides the pencil, we also have a series of paint brushes that we can use. This is Paint after all. There's a couple different textures. We have just sort of a standard brush here, which I'll now demonstrate. It's just kind of a normal thick line, very similar to that of the pencil really. We also have some other options as well. We have sort of a calligraphy pen, which gives a nice kind of curved tip that can make some kind of fun ribbon-looking lines as well. We also have a oil paintbrush, which gives a really neat kind of texture that we can use when we're creating to kind of give it some movement to it as well. We also have a spray paint can effect that we can use. I'm going to select purple and then make the size a little bit larger. It just kind of gives it a sort of splattery, hazy look to it that can add some neat effects into your paint project as well. And if I didn't want to keep any of these, I could use my eraser. I'm just going to use the back arrow to get rid of them real quick. Besides all of these brushes, we have the paint bucket, which will actually fill our full space with color with a single click. Now, if I wanted to use a color from the palette, I can just click on it. But if I wanted to modify this color, I could use a little Edit Color button that we have right next to our little color palette right there. And from here, I can actually modify the color. I can use this slider, sliding it up to make it lighter, sliding it down to make it darker. I can grab this little crosshair and kind of drag it through the color spectrum. If I find a color I like, I can take it, and if I want to keep it, I press OK, and it then will save that onto my palette so I can use that for later. I've kind of created this nice little green color that I want to keep. Color 1 and 2. Now color 1 is everything that we have been using so far with our pencil and our paints and our bucket. It is the color that is in the front. Color 2 is actually the color that is behind that. It is also the color that our eraser uses. So right now, if I use our eraser and I drag it on the page, it is going to be white because that is what is selected for color 2. See, if I were to modify color 2, let's say I change it to pink, and then I use our eraser, it is going to erase to a pink background. Color 1 is called the foreground, and color 2 is called the background. I can also use my paint bucket to click between these two colors. If I select it and then I right-click, it will actually use color 2 to fill the space, and then if I left-click, it'll use color 1 to fill the space. So I can easily just click back and forth with those colors using my mouse, right-click and left-click. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to white so I can demonstrate our next feature of Paint, which is our text box. Now, just like a lot of other Microsoft applications, we are able to have text in Paint. And the way that is done is by clicking and dragging this text feature. And from there, I can edit my text. I can change the font type. I'm going to go ahead and change this to something else. That looks nice. You can change the font size. You can change the style, bold, italicized, underlined, strike through, and then you can write just like many other Windows applications. A difference between this and other applications is once I've clicked out of that box, I cannot edit this text. It is part of that palette. You can see when I try to write more, it just writes over that. So you really want to be careful that when you click out of that box, you are done editing that text, because there's really no way to go back and edit it. You can use your eraser just like you could on your pencil, your brushes, or any other thing that you've used in Word thus far. Another fun feature of Paint is all the shapes that we have available to us. There's a whole little section of shapes right here that we can insert into our workspace. The first thing I'm going to show you is just a simple line. So all you have to do to insert a line is just to click and drag. Just like with the pencil, you can modify your thickness of that line. I'm going to do a little diagonal line here. And it's just real easy to click and drag. You can make a shape. You can do whatever you would like to with that. Besides the straight line, we have a curved line, and this is kind of fun. Just like with the straight line, I can click, but when I let go, I can click it twice to modify the curviness. So there's my first click, and then I have a second click to modify that line, just to add a little more fun to your lines, I guess. You can just modify that a little bit. Just like with the straight line, I can modify the thickness of that as well. And I'll show you again, you have two clicks. There's my first click, and then there is my second click. And I'm going to even try to make this a little curly Q here. There we go. Quite fun. Besides lines, we have a whole bunch of really neat shapes that we can use in Microsoft Paint. You can even scroll down, there's even more shapes. I'm going to first show you a circle. So I'm going to click on my circle shape, and then as I click and drag, it'll draw that circle for me. And you can see I have these lines that I can edit it before it becomes part of the canvas. I can stretch it out to make it an oval. I can also stretch it out that way. I can modify it up until I click out. At this point, I cannot modify it using those arrows. Another fun thing that I can do with shapes is that I can actually change the fill color in that. The shape we just did had no fill, so it was just white, but I can go in here and I can select solid color. And then in my color 2, I'm going to select the color I want for my fill. I'm going to choose this pink. And now when I draw my circle, I have a nice pink fill in there. Now, I'll show this a little later in the video, but you can actually use your paint bucket filler tool to fill a shape if you hadn't done the fill when you were setting the shape up. I'm going to make a quick triangle with a pink fill and a blue outline, and I'm going to show you that as I hover over the palette, it will actually change the color that is displayed within that triangle. It won't actually change the color until I've selected the color that I want from my palette. I'm going to choose this nice light blue. And also, besides having a solid color background on this, I want to show you that you can also modify the fill type. So I have a solid color. We saw no fill earlier. If I select the crayon, it adds this kind of interesting texture, marker, oil paint. It just shows the different textures that you can have for your fill besides just a solid color. And you can do the very same thing for your outline actually as well. You kind of get a neat text effects when you click and drag that. And now I'll show you the outline. See, there's no outline. You can get rid of your outline. There's the crayon, marker, the different effects you can add to that. For consistency, I'm going to make that crayon, so I have a fully crayon looking triangle here. There are all kinds of shapes you can use. There are obviously triangles, squares, circles, even stars, arrows, text bubbles. We'll maybe show some of those later. There's another one that's kind of fun here that is called the Polygon Shape. And how that works is you click and you'll drag a line. Oh, looks like I still have my crayon outline on here. I'm going to go and change that to solid color. And then as I click around inside my workspace, it will actually draw the line for me to create a organic shape here. And then I can move that around once I've clicked out of the box. I'll go ahead and show that again for you. You can draw a line, or you can just kind of click. It'll draw the line for you. And you can make some really fun, kind of interesting shapes within your workspace here. And now I'll show you how you can fill that shape color just using the paint bucket. So if I go and select that, and then I go grab whatever color I want from over here, I can easily apply that color to fill my shape in as well. Now I'm going to show you how you can use a tool within Paint to quickly copy the coloring from a shape or a letter or something, really anything, and then apply it to another piece that you're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and set up this star with some different colors. I've got an orange outline. I'm going to give it this solid blue fill. Now let's say we want to copy the color that we have right here and apply it to our star. Maybe we can't remember which color it was because we created a color and there's 3 different greens on there. What we can do is use this eyedropper tool, click on that, and then we will click the color we want to copy, and it'll immediately copy that to our color 1 up top. And then to modify the other color, we can just grab our paint bucket and we can easily apply that color to our other shape. If we wanted to copy multiple colors, or another color I should say, we can actually use our eyedropper and we can right-click to copy that. And if I right-click on that, it is going to copy that color to our color 2. And then if I wanted to apply that to the star, I would just make sure that I right-click instead of left-click. So just like we did earlier with the paint bucket, we can use that right-click for the background and left-click for the foreground color. And that way we can easily copy colors from one part of our piece and apply them to another. Now you may have noticed that as soon as we click out of a shape creation tool, we can no longer move it. I'm going to now demonstrate to you how we can use the Select tool to move things around on our piece. So here I have this triangle. If I click the Select tool button, I can click and drag to draw a square around that shape, and then I am able to freely move it around my workspace. Now this works pretty well in most instances. See, I can move it right back if I'd like to. But let's say we had another shape right here. In this instance, drawing a square around my shape isn't going to do any good because it's going to copy the bottom part of that other shape. So what we can do is we can use this freeform selection tool, and that actually allows us to draw our selection box that we want to use to move our shape around. So I'm going to draw around that shape, and now it'll only move that triangle and it won't interfere with the other part of that shape that I have made. We can also use our Select tool to completely clear our workspace. We can do that by going to Select and then Select All. This will actually select everything that we have on our piece. And then if we wanted to delete, we can do that very same thing again. Select, Select All, and then select Delete. And this will completely clear everything that we have written or drawn or wrote upon our canvas to this point. And if we regretted that, we could always press our back arrow to undo it. Another great feature in the Select option is the inverted selection. So what that will do is, I'll go ahead and show you, just draw around my shape again here. But the end result is going to be a little bit different. I go back up to my Select box, I click Invert Selection, and it actually selects everything around the shape that I had drawn. And so this can be kind of handy in some various applications. Actually, I'll show you an example later on. Okay. I'm going to show you some other features. So I'm going to get rid of this rectangle real quick. I'm going to move my triangle to the middle of my screen, and I'm going to show you the Rotate feature. Actually, first I'm going to go ahead and change my fill using my little eyedropper tool, and now I'm going to show you the Rotate feature. So, just like we were doing earlier, I'm going to select my shape, and then when I press Rotate, I have some options. I can rotate it 90 degrees. I can rotate it 90 degrees the other way, to the left. I can also rotate it 180 degrees, flip it on the other side basically. I can flip it vertically across a horizontal line. And I can also flip it horizontally over that vertical line. So you can really modify your shape with that. If I had not selected my shape, it would actually rotate my entire workspace, which could be a little bit confusing. Another way I can modify my shape is by using the Resize tool. This would be in lieu of just clicking and dragging the selection box that is around the shape when you first create it. I'm just going to kind of enter some random numbers here, trying to make it a little bit bigger. And then you also have these skew degree options down here. I'm just going to kind of mess around and put in 15 for the horizontal, see what happens. Okay, it's a little bit bigger and it's kind of skewed it a little bit one way. Another tool we have in this section of the toolbar is the cropping tool. And the way that works is we will highlight something, and then once we press crop, it will get rid of everything but that area. This can be nice if you're editing a photo to make it a profile picture. Maybe if a photo with a lot of people, you just want to focus in on yourself. You also can do your sort of standard copy, cut, and paste functions in Paint. I'm just right-clicking, I get this dialog box. I'll right-click again, and I can paste. That can be handy for copying shapes around in Paint. Another thing we can do is we can invert our color. That's another option that shows up here when we right-click. And what that will do is it will invert the color of everything we've selected. So we have that shape that's changed from yellow to blue, and then our background has changed from white to black because we've inverted that whole selection. Okay, I'm going to show you one more feature within the Select toolbar, and that is the transparent selection. To demonstrate this, I'm going to change half of my workspace to green, leave the other half white, and then I'm going to create a little text sentence over here. I'm going to insert a heart just to show you guys another fun shape that's available in Paint. And let's say I want to move that from the white side of my canvas over to the green side. If I click and select and then try to bring that over, it's going to bring that white background, and I don't want that. I'm wanting the red font to be directly onto the green. So what I need to do is, when I select this, I need to go to my selection box, and I need to click Transparent Selection. And what that'll do is, if I've clicked that, and then I drag this over, it will bring just that text, and it won't bring the background with it as well. I'm now going to go to the View tab on my toolbar and show you what you can do there. We've been in the Home tab most of this time. I have rulers I can click on and off, and I have grid lines I can use. These grid lines can be very useful if you're trying to make very precise changes to your work, or if you had like a photo you were editing. Let's zoom in a little bit here. We have a magnifying glass option right here. We can also change it in the scroll bar, but I'm going to use the magnifying glass for this, and I just click in. And then, when I draw my shape, I can be even more precise with this. I can try to match these grid lines to make it more exact. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to make a perfect square, so I'm going to move this up to the far corner of my canvas, and then I'm going to stretch out this side to there and make sure that I do the exact same measurement right there. And there you have it. I have a perfect square that I've created. I'm going to dye it green. I'm going to use this corner demagnifier to kind of bring it back to this shape. And those are grid lines you can use. They're kind of can blur your eyes a little bit, so I don't keep them on all the time. Oh, and here we see we have other zoom in and zoom out options as well. Now let's say that we wanted to save some of these works that we have created. So let's say maybe we made this really neat polygon shape and we like how it turned out. We had even given it a nice yellow orange fill, and we wanted to save this. So we have some different options for saving in Paint. We can go down to our Save As tab. We can save it as a PNG or a JPEG. Those are pretty much the ones you'll use the most often, but there are other options if you got to a bit more advanced level as well. I'm going to save this as a PNG. I'm going to change the file name to Cool Polygon, and then I'll press save, and it's going to save it to my photos. Now, if I wanted to print this, I would go to the Print section. It's always a good idea to go to Print Preview in Paint just because it's not maybe the most compatible with printer options. Another thing you could try to do to make sure that your workspace lines up better with a standard piece of paper is go to Properties, and then from there we can modify the size of our workspace. It's currently set up in pixels, but we can select inches, and I'm going to change it to the standard paper size in hopes that that will make our print come out a little bit better. Since we kind of have a landscape format going on, I'm going to change it to those dimensions. And then when I go to Print Preview, this should give us a better, more accurate representation of what's going to print out. All right, I think we are now ready to utilize these tools and these skills that we've been going over to edit a photo. So I'm going to go to my File Explorer and navigate to my Pictures section, and then I'm going to open this photo. It'll open in Windows Photos app, but if I right-click on it and then scroll down to Open With, it'll give me options to open in Microsoft Paint. And so I'm going to click that, and I can see Paint is my first option under the Other Options heading. And then if I press OK, it'll open in Paint. It's huge, so I need to resize it. I'm going to grab my magnifier and right-click to minimize to see the full photo. Now we can see his face mask is a little bit worn down, and so I can actually edit that. I'm going to zoom back in on his face, And I'm going to grab my freeform tool, and I'm going to cut out this faded part. So I'm going to click and drag over all that area. It's really important when using this tool that you don't pick up your hand until you have created the shape. Once I have done that, I can delete that. And now I'm going to grab my dropper tool, get some of this black color from this other part of the face mask, go to my paint bucket, and then fill that in. And now I'm going to grab a paintbrush to kind of slowly blend that black into the black of the other part of the face mask. It just kind of is a nice effect to kind of cut the contrast down a little bit on that. And zoomed in here, you can still tell that there's a little bit of a difference, but as we zoom out, you can hardly tell at all that we've modified that face mask. Just like we modified the face mask, I can draw all over this photo if I wanted to. I can insert a shape. I'm going to insert a little word cloud so it looks like our astronaut is saying hello to us. I'm going to change that fill to white and keep it solid. And then I'm going to grab my text box and I'm going to write some text on this. I need to make sure that I move my text box into the correct position because, as we know from earlier, you cannot move text once you have written it on your paint project. And so there we go. If we wanted to make a really fun little picture, what we could do is we could zoom in, and I am going to use that freeform selection tool again, and this time I am going to draw it around my little astronaut guy. And so this does take some concentration. This might be a little bit advanced level as far as cropping goes, but I am going to draw around him to trace just him. Like I said earlier, you really want to be sure that you're doing this in one movement. If you pick up your mouse, it will kind of like slice the shape right across where you are drawing. So you really need to do this in one solid movement. This does take some concentration to do. And there I'm cutting off his foot a little bit, but that's okay. This is just for a demonstration purpose. We're almost around to the other side there. Let's see if I can make it around the head. Okay, there we go. And from there, I can move him around. Or what I'm going to do in this instance is do our inverted selection, which, as you remember, I can move my whole screen around except for the astronaut. Then I'm going to delete that, and we're left with nothing but our astronaut guy. I'm going to clean this up a little bit with our eraser, try to get that shape looking a little bit better. It's not perfect, but that's okay. We're just having fun. Now I'm going to zoom out, and then let me do a little bit more eraser on there. I'm going to grab my paint can and make this black so it looks like our astronaut is out there in space. And there are lots of stars out in space, so I'm going to add this star shape. And I want to actually give that a yellow fill too, so we have a nice solid colored star there. I'm going to add a couple other stars. Little star right there. And let's kind of move him around a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a selection of these stars with my freeform tool. I'm going to select those. I'm going to right-click, select copy, and then I'm going to right-click and select paste, so that way I don't have to individually make each star out here. I can just copy and paste that as much as I would like to. Now, these tools that I've been showing you in Paint, they can really be used for all kinds of things. This may not seem like the most practical use, but you could easily use Paint to modify photos. It is kind of a free photo editor that you can use, and it can come in really handy. I'm going to go ahead and add in a triangle. I'm going to make a little rocket. I'm going to fill that with red, and I'm going to add a rectangle to make the base of the rocket. There we go. And I'm going to fill that with white. And then I'm going to use our little polygon tool to make the rocket's leg. down, and then click over there. You can see it does a black fill because I have black selected as my second color, and then I'm going to fill that in. And I don't want our little astronaut guy stranded out there in space, so I'm going to grab this curvy line, connect them, and then I got 2 points. I'm going to go 1 and 2 to give it a fun little curvy option to connect them to that rocket. Now there's our little space scene. It looks very fun. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please follow our Facebook page, MCPL 360. We premiere new videos every Wednesday and Friday at 1 p.m. If you miss those premieres, you can also watch them on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is MCPL Mo. Follow us there and look for our consumer technology resource playlist. Thank you very much. Have a great day.